best way to attract your community, your tribe of people to you that I know of is a podcast. You're just putting out that flame, that sincere authenticity of who you are as an organization, and getting to share that unique fiber of who you're serving and why, and how you're getting to be the guide and still positioning the customer as the hero of the story, even getting to give your customers this elevated seat at the table through the form of the podcast. I mean, it does so much psychological good in terms of introducing people to the brand in the right way and starting to build a community around that brand.
It is time for Build That Podcast, where we will discuss how you can use a podcast to grow your business and expand your influence. I'm your host, Eric Rutherford. Let me encourage you to sign up for the 200 words to move you forward with marketing and podcasting, delivered right to your inbox each Tuesday. Sign up for it at buildthatpodcast.com/the 200. I'll also put it in the show notes. Now, let's jump into today's episode. I am thrilled today because I have with me Nate Brown. He is Senior Director of Customer Experience at Arise Virtual Solutions. He's also co-founder of the CX Accelerator, a nonprofit community that exists to equip, encourage, and connect customer experience professionals at every stage in their journey. Nate, welcome to the show, my friend.
What's going on, Eric? It's great to see you. Not on a Sunday. Even cooler to see you on a Friday.
I know.
Thrilled to be with you.
Oh, I am thrilled too. And for everybody listening or watching, Nate and I have been friends for a bunch of years. I started to do the math, and then I just sort of quit, because once you get to a certain point, it's like old friend. Right? It's just old friends.
I remember, Eric, sitting at a cafeteria, like lunch table with you before our church had a building.
Yes.
And we were talking about marketing. We were dreaming about marketing stuff. I mean,
we
had
were
10 years ago. It was awesome.
I know. I agree. And it's so funny that we are still jamming away on marketing stuff today.
Love it.
Oh, I love it. So you've got a podcast. I want to get into that. I want to get into Arise, but before we hit those things with CX, because every superhero has an origin story. So how did you get into CX? Was it like you were 8 years old and thinking, man, CX is my vision, this is my calling? How did you get there?
Yeah, well, it's funny because in the work of CX, we often say, and this is from building a story brand, which I know you know of, Eric.
Oh, love it.
We're not the hero of the story in the work of CX. You know who the hero is? The customer.
Absolutely.
But we get to be the guide, and there's so many thrilling ways that we get to be the guide, which I know that we're going to drive into. But as far as like my navigation into customer experience, it was strange. I was selling postage meters on the streets of Jacksonville, Florida, right after college. Turns out I wasn't a very good postage meter salesman. But one thing I did love, Eric, I had a few accounts spread across Jacksonville that had an existing machine. And I love to go in there. Hey, how's it working? What else are you trying to accomplish here? How can I help you? Just love that customer service element. And so once I finally tapped out of that job, I jumped into an adult learning, an LMS safety science company that was doing safety training for construction workers and other folks that were in kind of precarious job situations that needed specialized training to make sure that they can navigate their job safely. And I loved it. Loved customer support, and finally found just a really great career in which I was able to serve people in these meaningful ways. But fast forwarding the clock many, many, many years, I had ownership of that team. We had acquired other teams into us. And I was kind of sitting there, I'm tired of just waiting for our customers to come and engage with us. And it was so reactive, the way that we were thinking about it. And I didn't know the word at the time, Eric, but what I was looking for was this magic thing called customer experience, which was that overall customer journey management, the thoughts and perceptions the customers had of their overall relationship with us, not just my little micro area in customer service. And once I understood the impact that we could have as service professionals on the larger customer journey, I have made that my life's work, at least career-wise, to really help customer service professionals migrate and evolve into their CX power. And that really would be the hero story for me, at least, is helping others to find that superpower that's inside of them.
I appreciate that so much. And it's like customer service, that customer experience is one of those things that are, I say underrated because everybody thinks of the product, everybody thinks of the business, everybody thinks of everything else, but it's that customer touch point that really makes or breaks a sale, a service, anything.
Oh gosh, no. I mean, you're so right in this, Eric. I mean, a lot of times customer service professionals can be almost regarded as second-class citizens inside the organizations that they serve in, because you have all these problems that just roll downhill into the service environment, and it's just expected that they fix it, they clean it up, they just make the messes go away. And that has changed in the age of the customer, as people have seen the strategic nature of these interactions that people have with customer service, and how much that ultimately dictates the overall loyalty, the share of wallet, the customer lifetime value of these customers. And so, Eric, you see the rise of customer success, which is this customer service, this customer centric mentality, this way of doing sales and marketing completely differently. So it's really that customer service mentality infused throughout the entire organization, and people are getting results from that. It's awesome to see.
Oh, that is a wonderful thing, because I think we need more of it. We need to, as businesses or entrepreneurs or content creators, we need to be thinking about those customer touch points. It's all about that. I wrote about this recently. I went to a racetrack. For everybody not in Murfreesboro, yes. Racetrack has invaded, and they are here in mass, and they're great. I love Racetrack in terms of their service, in terms of their gas. One of the things I was blown away with the first time I went into one locally here was they had the self-service kiosk in the gas station. And so I was able to get my fountain soda. I walked up to the self-serve. I scanned it. I went through it. I didn't have to wait in a line. It was sweet. And I thought, this is a brilliant example of making the customer experience, really reducing the friction and making it seamless.
Yeah. Well, buckle your seatbelts, Racetrack, because Buc-ee's is coming into Middle Tennessee. they have taken the experience and elevated every component of it. But I do love Racetrack, and there is a magical element to just the consistency of Racetrack. I know what I'm going to get. It's just what I need. I don't want to have to walk into the Walmart of gas stations and navigate a crowd of 2,000 people to get my coffee and my keychain, go to the bathroom, and get out of here. So, I mean, there's still very much a place for the great experience that Racetrack has created, even when you've got the Buc-ee's of the world moving in.
And I think really it's even more important that they nail that customer experience when Buc-ee's is trying to break ground. Yeah, when the big elephant is a coming, you got to have your footprint in order.
Yep, got to have your experienced ducks in a row, which I think Racetrack does.
So tell me about Arise, and what problem does Arise try to solve?
Ooh, classic StoryBrand question. I love you, Eric. Arise is a very cool company. I was working in this cool startup called Officium Labs as their chief experience officer. We actually got acquired by Arise 2 years ago, and it's been a really fun ride getting into this organization of Arise Virtual Solutions. And the problem that we get to solve is a really exciting one. So think about all these people that are out in the gig economy right now that want to have the opportunity to service great organizations. But geographically, they don't live right there. For one reason or another, they're working from home, and they also are working probably like a part-time window of time in a flexible shift kind of manner. And we have engaged these unique individuals, so many of which in our talent place are minorities and women and veterans and those that are disabled. I mean, like 80 to 90% of our talent place made up of these folks that are looking for a little bit more flexibility in their life and work right now. And we have connected them with some of the world's greatest brands. So they're getting these really awesome, unique individuals that are an extension of their customer service capabilities that are servicing these brands in incredible ways, saving so much money on the traditional service model, but also getting an incredible level of customer service quality. So it's kind of right in that sweet spot of how can we do customer service the very best we can as an organization, especially, I mean, think about like a DoorDash as an example, Eric. I mean, you're going to get overrun with calls in a window of time from like 4 to 7 p.m. Is like, there's no way that our internal customer service team can handle this burst of activity and do it well. You're going to burn out your team. So you've got to extend that, and you've got to bring a capable partner in to be able to handle that flex capacity. And that's what Arise does very well.
And that makes total sense because the flexibility of being able to manage your queue, manage those hot times of day without having to bring people on premise. And I think that virtual, the way we've, especially since COVID, so much going remote, so much going remote and being supported as remote. It's not like second class citizens or, something weird. So now you can bolster both parties. And so that's even more, that's not just customer, that's also sort of employee experience too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, our service partners, they are the heart of Verizon. We exist to create a wonderful and unique working situation for them. And by extension, the brands that we get to service through those incredible individuals. So, I mean, it truly is a win-win. I kind of compare it like to an Airbnb situation. The way that they celebrate inside of Airbnb culture, they celebrate the role of host, which just has this wonderful, almost biblical power. That word of host and hospitality is just such a cool concept. Well, I mean, same with service, same with customer service. And we celebrate our service partners in that same way. They are the magic and the secret sauce that make the organization what it is. So it's incentivizing. It's like we want to create the best possible situation in which these service partners can engage seamlessly, do the best work that they can possibly do for these brands that we love. It's very motivating.
Oh, as you're doing this, when we think of that customer experience, with the brands that you're working with, are you having to sort of help them understand or appreciate just this customer experience level? Is it like they come to you and they're asking questions, or are they just like, we need to spend a volume of money? Like, is it underappreciated? Do they understand it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. We have a pretty mature demographic of brands that generally, at least to some degree, understand the power of customer experience and customer service. And they're going to want to partner with an organization such as Arise that has that premium level of service associated with it. So it is a slightly more mature demographic of customers that we're going to have in this space. But the exciting thing is, Eric, we get to surprise them and we do get to educate them. I was on this amazing call just last week with a team of customer success managers servicing, I think, the largest retailer of like your kitchen sinks and all that. Incredible brand, legendary brand. And we were brainstorming on some incredible ways that we could reduce friction out of their service experience. And they're looking to us to help in that. And it's just tremendously exciting.
I love it. And the way you mentioned earlier, just that mind shift from reactive to proactive in terms of that experience. Is that something are they thinking like, hey, we need to be proactive, or are they thinking we just need to figure out how to handle the calls that come in better?
Well, funny enough, I have the Effortless experience sitting right next to me. So, I mean, this came out in 2011, Eric, but I mean, we use it daily, in this work because it's just so legendary in terms of helping people morph that mentality towards that more proactive model and doing incredible things like next issue avoidance. I mean, think about the contact centers of old that were just about, let's get this person off the phone as fast as we can. Let's get this ticket done in the most efficient way possible and move on to the next ticket. Let's knock out this backlog. But now it's more strategic. These interactions have so much value to the overall customer relationship. We're not trying to rush them off. No, we want to value their time. So what we're trying to do is make that interaction highly, highly valuable. So we're not taking longer than we need to, but what we are going to do is be like, hey, I just helped you to get that dishwasher installed. Did you know you're actually going to need these little special feet based on the wood floor that you have? Have you considered that yet? I want to make sure that you've thought through that because I would hate for you to get this dishwasher and for it to mess up your beautiful new wood floor. Next issue avoidance. Now that's being the guide, Eric. That's not being a rep who's just sitting here trying to get through calls. That's thinking, what is this person that I get the opportunity, the pleasure to serve? What are they trying to accomplish? And even if they didn't articulate that need perfectly, I'm going to dive in, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to guide them to success. That's what great service looks like.
Anticipating what the questions or problems they may or may not know, but that are next in line. And that's huge, right? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Oh, it changes everything.
But
I mean,
it is.
People kind of make fun of this question of, is there anything else that we could do to serve you today, Eric, at the end of a customer service call? And now the classic response is, you tell me. You know what I'm trying to do. So I don't know the question to ask you. You are the knowledge expert. So don't ask me what else I need. Guide me to success. And that's what great agents do. That's what great service partners do.
Wow. That's a beautiful example. I had never thought of it that way. But if you're doing customer experience right, if you're walking them down the path, you should know what their next step is. And if you've completed that, if there's nothing else, then that's great. That's really your objective.
Yeah. No, and I'm not bashing the question itself. It's more the mentality of the person that's servicing the call. Have I done everything that I can to anticipate and guide this person to success rather than putting the ball in their court to try to forge their own path and navigate their own journey to the outcome, which hopefully you've done the work to understand, navigate them there.
For CX improvements to stick, so they're going to be part of the long-term identity of the business, where do the changes need to begin? Is this like executive level? Is this like grassroots frontline? Is it somewhere in between? What's that look like?
I've done both, Eric. So there is a correct answer. The correct answer, Eric, always is executive leadership. And why is that? My friend Annette Franz, a mentor for me, has said that customer experience change is culture change. I mean, that's what it is. We're changing the mentality of our employees towards our customers so that they will treat them differently. They will behave in a different way that results in the outcome of loyalty. That's what CX is. We enhance those perceptions through the experiences that we create for these customers. So it truly is a cultural transformation. Now it's nice to have that clarity, but it's also terrifying because go Google, Eric, the rate of success with culture change initiatives. And the failure rate is between 80 and 90%. A little terrifying because people don't do the hard work required to make this work stick. And a lot of times, to answer your question, it's not driven at the right level in the right ways. So you can't do a cultural transformation without the endorsement, without the true participation of the executive leadership team. I mean, Mark Schaefer just articulated this so beautifully at an event he did last week at the Knoxville Entrepreneurial Center. He's talking about you can't change a culture without true endorsement and participation from executive leadership. And I do believe that. But Eric, that doesn't mean if your executive leadership team doesn't quite get this yet, and I have been there, I was there for 2 years. And so I did start a grassroots movement, but it wasn't meant to be the entire CX initiative inside the business. It was meant to awaken curiosity. It was to awaken the curiosity of everybody at every level inside the business in terms of the power of customer experience. If we do this well together, it will change the way we think. It'll change the way we behave. It will change the outcomes that we earn with our customers inside this organization. And we had enough success with that grassroots movement, that original CX Change Coalition, that the executive leadership saw and they ordained a CX function, an executive leader inside that business unit with a CX director title that never existed before in the 12 years that I worked there. So it was so exciting to see that grassroots movement do its job. Its job was not to do CX. Its job was to awaken curiosity, and it worked.
Awaken curiosity. I wrote that down. That's a brilliant description because, like you say, culture starts at the top and works its way down, but grassroots on any level with CX, other things, you have a sphere of influence, and that awakened curiosity is a great image to hold on to. It's like, this is my objective. That is brilliant. Now, anything in terms of your CX journey, anything unexpected or any stories you would like to share from that? Because I am sure you have seen a lot.
Sure. Boy, did I mess up. So the sucker that took that original CX director role was me. And I'll be totally, I didn't do a good job with it. I just didn't do a great job. I would love to have a chance to do that whole role again inside that same organization, that same time, that same context, because there was such an opportunity there. But one of the premier mistakes that I made is I just had a really selfish, greedy mentality about CX. Now, I was almost considering myself to be like this prophet of CX, like I'm bringing CX to the organization. And I've kind of to some degree called it the Moses model of CX, where I had the golden tablets of voice of customer data, and I'm standing up on top of Mount Sinai, just slamming the tablets down in front of the Israelites of the company and being like, all of you suck. You've done a terrible job here. And look what this customer said. We had the same problem last week. Why haven't you fixed this yet? You can imagine how motivating that was. It wasn't at all. It wasn't at all. I mean, all I did was push people away. Whereas originally, when I was doing that grassroots movement, it was bringing people in. It was being collaborative. It was awakening curiosity. And as soon as that role was formalized, I got addicted to that little tiny bit of hierarchical power and changed my whole approach. It was the dumbest, worst thing I could have done. So now I think about it as more the Gandalf model of, Gandalf sitting there with the Fellowship of the Ring, bringing the hobbits in there, bringing the elves and the dwarfs together who would never work together, the different races of human that hated each other, between the white city of Gondor and the horse people of Rohan, they actually worked together. They came together and established this fellowship because there was something that transcended all that divide, all that animosity that existed inside their organization before. And that thing was to destroy the ring. So in the work of a CX leader uses that Gandalf model of painting this vision of, if we serve our customers better, here's what this means for us. We accomplish our mission as an organization so much more effectively. We rise above our competition. We do this through customer centricity. And this is the path. And you can unite people into a CX change coalition and really make a special thing happen using that Gandalf model and not getting addicted to trying to be a bit of a Moses in that moment like I was. So that's one small takeaway from my first year of the work to avoid.
It's easy to put yourself in the wrong spot. I know I've done it. It's the StoryBrand model. I am not the hero. I am simply the guide. And when I get out of the hero role, I can do that a whole lot better.
Ugh, it's tough though. It's tough. It's
tough.
It's hard for me because I'm a bit of a spotlight guy. I'm a high eye on the disc profile. I like the attention a little bit. So, but I mean, so much bigger than that is I love serving others. And I love seeing them get this and being able to collaborate and awakening their ability to serve those around them, the employees around them, and the customers in ways that they just hadn't thought of before. So it's just the best work in the world. I mean, it's the most conducive to servant leadership. I mean, there's so many things about CX work that really make it stand apart. And it's what great brands are doing. I mean, to use that Denise Leon phrase, it's what great brands do. They have found this beautiful fusion between their culture, between their marketing, their brand promise, the core of the business, that brand core, and the delivery of that promise through great customer experience. They have found that powerful fusion. That's what all these great brands are doing to rise above, even in these uncertain economic times.
It is a differentiator, and it's a huge value prop.
Yep.
That has nothing to do with the price of your product. Just it endears customers to you.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a rise, right?
It is.
And I don't think my boss will mind me saying we're not the lowest cost player in the shop, but we are so good at delivering a unique and great level of service for the brands that we ultimately work with. And we do save a lot of money for those. I mean, there is that efficiency part as well, but that's why it's that sweet spot. You're not tossing out customer service and just doing the bare minimum to eke out the efficiency of it. Because it's such a galvanizing thing for the future of the business. You've got to treat your customers well. I mean, if you save a little bit of money in Q3 of 2023, but forgo that long-term partnership with your customers, you're not going to be here next year. I mean, you can't cut yourself off at the knees like that.
That is true. You have to keep that in mind. And as we're going to transition just a bit, because I could talk with you about this forever and enjoy the conversation. We could just keep going for a couple more hours. You had started a podcast because recently I saw a post that you were in season 3, which meant you had to have seasons 1 and 2, right?
Correct.
You can't get to 3 without 1 and 2.
We can do math at Arise, yes.
Well, sometimes, I'm good with 10, right? Because I can
Yeah,
deal with 10.
right on. Yeah, ditto.
What motivated you to start a podcast? Because me personally, I think podcasts are a fantastic way for
Yeah.
brands to increase their exposure, evergreen content. But what motivated you to start this?
Yeah, well, so it was inside of Officium Labs, the company that ultimately acquired what was Arise, in Officium Lab. We started it there. So funny enough, Eric, I had just left this organization that I love that I worked with for 12 years and jumped into this little startup. This crazy move for me. And I had this CXO role of evangelism, being at all these conferences, being out and customers live and in person. And then within 2 months of me being in that role, COVID struck the world. And the format of my job was obliterated. My entire calendar just disappeared. And I was sitting there like, I've got to figure out how to do actual marketing. Like, I've got to go from this like fun event, and I'm not saying marketing isn't fun, but it was just kind of this super organic, almost whimsical approach to the marketing of this startup. Of we're just going to go out and offer up thought leadership and have fun while we're doing it, and just invite people on the journey with us. To wow, we got to figure out how to do some marketing here and get this startup out in the world and talk about what the unique services that we offer here. And the podcast was it. Podcast was it in terms of that coming into the market and speaking volumes about that we could fill for people, that unique territory that we could offer up. And it wasn't going to be us knocking people out with white papers and case studies and this and that. There's a role for that. That's a little later on in the cycle, right? But we just needed to let people know that we were there and that we had some great, unique things to say, and to position our existing customers to be able to say the unique things that they had to teach the world around customer experience. And so me and Sydney Nelson, we had this 1, 2, 3 punch idea. And we did this little boxing photo shoot thing, and we had flour tossing up in the air. We had so much fun doing this and releasing this compelling new podcast, this Experience Matters podcast, this 1, 2, 3 punch to CX success. And, it was a bold approach, right? I mean, the leaders of the company were kind of like, oh, well, I'm not totally, yeah, I guess. But me and Sydney were like, this is it. Like, we got to rise above the noise. Like, this is exciting. We got to invite people into something that is compelling and bold and interesting. And it absolutely did work to launch that organization out into the space and attract the attention of so many that would later become a vehicle for many of the great things that are happening to us today.
I find that podcasts, it's a way to build familiarity and intimacy and trust with an audience before they buy. It's a try before you buy kind of thing.
Absolutely. I mean, Mark Schaefer's brilliant new book. He's the one that wrote Marketing Rebellion, a couple of years ago, but he's recently released Belonging to the Brand. And he talks very clearly and compellingly about how the future of marketing is community. And best way to attract your community, your tribe of people to you that I know of is a podcast. You're just putting out that flame, that sincere authenticity of who you are as an organization, and getting to share that unique fiber of who you're serving and why, and how you're getting to be the guide and still positioning the customer as the hero of the story, even getting to give your customers this elevated seat at the table through the form of the podcast. I mean, it does so much psychological good in terms of introducing people to the brand in the right way and starting to build a community around that brand.
It does. Now, as you started going through this, did you use a specific format? Were you doing interviews? Was this like sort of a talking head between two people? How did you set your format up?
Yeah, I mean, me and Sydney and John Pompey really came up with this unique way of doing it to where we wanted to have a quote unquote thought leader, like a well-known author or an innovator who had a unique concept that was pushing the world of CX in a good direction forward. We wanted that thought leader role. Then we actually partnered them up with a practitioner, somebody in a great brand who was actually doing that thing and seeing results from it. So we took this hypothetical cool idea got to introduce our audience to why this is a cool concept. Then we got to drive it home of, yeah, it's working. Here's how I applied that in my hospital. Here's how I applied that at Midday Square, Quebec's most amazing chocolate maker. All these different brands. But I mean, that's one of the glorious things about CX, right? Is it's so translatable across industries and different types of organizations as we think about what makes people love a brand. So many of those magic threads are the same, regardless of the vertical, regardless of the industry. And so, I mean, we're getting to learn everything from healthcare professionals to retail into the chocolatiers of Quebec and so many more.
And it sounds like then too, you getting to share this information with your community, but you are learning as well as you go. And so it's like everybody is winning by sharing this content.
That's the way it should be, Eric. And unfortunately, there's a lot of podcasts that don't do that well. And and this is my opinion here, right? We've deviated from standard marketing wisdom to Nate Brown's soapbox. But the more that you're inviting people into a conversation and drawing out the unique voice of others, rather than trying to offer some top-down gift of here's why we're so smart. Here's why this business is so much better and different than every other business, and we're going to shove this down your throat again and again and again. You still get that message across in terms of we have great thought leadership here. We're doing something unique and different. Let us show you through the voices of all these amazing people that we're getting to serve. And that's just a better conversation to me.
It is just being able to let them see the results, let them hear those comments, hear that work play out is brilliant. It really is. It's just, I think it's that idea of the abundance mindset and the scarcity mindset is I want to lift people up. And by lifting people up, I know I'm going to win too.
Yep. It's funny that you bring that up. Our CEO, Jonathan Schroer, the CEO of Officium Labs and is now the Chief Innovation Officer inside of Arise, he uses that methodology, that mentality a lot. I think even at the start of this week, he just put out in Slack, have an abundant day. So he's really been drilling that into us with good effect.
That's true. I love it. Now, as you started your podcast journey, for anybody who's thinking about it, who doesn't know how to actually start, can feel a little overwhelming, right? There's a lot of unknowns. So how did you figure out what to do? And what do you use? And is this like you're in a studio? Is this like you've got like 10 people working on it? What's that look like for you guys?
Yeah. So I originally worked with an amazing gentleman named David Wilkinson.
Love David. He is awesome. Yes, David is brilliant.
Because I was sitting there, I'd never launched a podcast before, and I could sit there and watch YouTube videos and fart around for 3 or 4 months and stumble through all this stuff, or I could give David 4 hours of time and contract with him to just help me to accelerate this process and launch me off with a legit podcast. And he was exactly what we needed. So, I mean, just pay some money and work with somebody that has actually done it. I mean, there's so many great organizations out there and individual consultants that offer that service of helping you to get over the intimidation factor and to launch this thing correctly. So I would highly, highly recommend engaging in that service and setting yourself up for success. That being said, there are some amazing new things out there like Adobe Podcast, which I don't know if you've seen this, Eric.
I haven't worked with it yet. It used to be known as
Project Shasta. It's just making it so easy for people to do this themselves. I mean, everything from just editing your own audio, like it just AI edits the entire podcast episode and hand delivers this beautiful, crisp audio file to you, even if you didn't have an ideal setup at all. It just fills in the gaps. It does these things. So there are some amazing new tools that are out there that are making it very, very easy. Otherwise, you're going to have to wrestle through and get a decent mic and figure out how to edit this and to have individual audio files for each of your guests so that when I sneeze, I don't cover up the audio for Eric, who's talking in that moment. These are things that you learn and figure out over time, but they require a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of investment. When we got started, it was me and Sydney. Actually, it was just me originally, and we launched several episodes. Sydney came on and added so much just in terms of the production value. She was so helpful with the marketing, getting the distribution of the podcast and getting that out there. So, very remarkable resource there to have kind of that producer individual, if able to. I would say that a podcast is definitely a 2-person job minimum. Just to do it right. It's really, really hard to do everything by yourself. But if you've got that partner, that behind the scenes person that's kind of tuning in and, got the earphones in the back and let's try that real quick again, or there's a little bit of a hitch there. And then also on the back end, being able to help to distribute and do little snippet video pieces out of it, little short form content that pulls people into the longer form content. That was another thing that Sydney was so good at that really helped us out. So having at least folks, and now, I'm so wonderfully supported by Tone and by David and Erica and Mary and Francis, our incredible marketing team at Arise, who all have a little piece in our podcast. Everybody helps out with our podcast to make this the best season that we've ever had. We're so excited about season 3 of this thing, and we're absolutely learning together new ways that we can make a difference with it and help to propel the brand forward.
It sounds like then, just for businesses who are listening in, it's very doable. It's approachable. There is a little bit of learning to get it set up, but it's not insurmountable. It's not like you're rolling out a new, it's not like you're rolling out Workday, right? It's not like you're rolling out anything like that.
Thank goodness.
I know. Oh man. Whew. I know. But it's very approachable. 1 or 2 people, some decent equipment, and decent equipment's like $100, $150 mic. It's not like thousands.
Yeah.
And so you can do a lot to really build that brand and launch it and expand it. So I appreciate you kind of talking through that. One more thing. So you did season 1. So you decided, okay, we want to have a start and a finish to season 1. And that's a smart thing to do. That really is. There's different approaches. You can do ongoing, but season means I'm only going to do it for this long. I'm going to tell everybody how long we're doing it, and then we can do it again. And that sort of gives you a lot more flexibility. What was the motivating part of getting to seasons 2 and 3?
Yeah, and I'm sorry I'm making these crazy faces over here. I've got a foot cramp. Don't worry. But yeah, it's a great question, Eric. And this was something that David Wilkinson, before we even started, he put this in our head. He said, you got to have 3 or 4 episodes in the can before you start releasing. And you want to do a season of like 10 or 12 episodes, probably, because it's sustainable. If you don't do this, everybody burns out. you the creator burn out because there's just no end. And it is work, it's just work. And you lose that flare of excitement. And your audience feels that flare of excitement leave. And then why would I follow this? It's just going to be there. If I want to pick it back up later, it's just going to be there. It's just this never-ending cycle of content. Whereas if you do it seasonally, you can bring unique elements into the season. We have done something unique with each of our 3 seasons to add a unique flair, to add an elevated production value, or to even change the format to some degree. We've brought new elements every single season, and we will continue to do that. And it just makes it exciting. You're on a journey with your audience. You're allowing yourself the opportunity to hit a strong pause button. Say, wow, this was season 2. Awesome. We got 1,000 downloads. We reached these leads. We generated these leads from that. We furthered these partnerships with these customers. A lot of great outcomes here. What would we need to do in season 3 to where we can have an even bigger impact and really bring this thing even more to life? And who would help us to be a part of that? Start to get your guest together. But if you can think about a season in terms of we need these 12 guests who are really going to get this core theme across. That's a package. That's an experience that you're going on with your listeners versus just a never-ending cycle of content where you're going to find yourself just mailing it in and filling gaps in just to get that Tuesday morning episode out.
True. And just real quick shout out, David Wilkinson I learned from David so much. He really got me on the podcast journey as well. So I can't recommend him enough. But you're right. It's manageable. It's a season. It's a start, a finish. And you can do different things. You can set it up differently each time. And it does take the pressure off. It's like, we're going to make it special. We're going to make it an event. We're going to make it a limited time offer.
I'm already excited for season 4. Like, I'm already dreaming. We are in the middle of season 3 right now, and we've got a great lineup. Like, we're going to do some cool stuff in season. I'm already taking mental notes and thinking through how are we going to elevate this another entire level in season 4.
Now, one thing you mentioned, this isn't on our list of questions, but one thing you mentioned, because not only is a podcast a way to expand your brand, to expand your audience, but it's also a way to get hot leads and to call people to action. What's that look like for you guys? Information's great, but let's be honest, we also want ideally to grow our business.
Outcomes, yeah. I mean, it's going to be hard to invest the time and energy and money required to do this properly if you aren't able to set correct expectations with senior leadership about what this podcast could, should, would bring for you. Now, it is a top of funnel activity. Like we talked about before, you are introducing your brand to your community, to your tribe. You're planting that seed of, this is an interesting company. I would say, and this is going back to StoryBrandism, the number one outcome that you hopefully will see is that your podcast will generate traffic to your website. It will awaken a little bit of curiosity. Now, your website needs to be good and ready to convert, to take advantage of that traffic. But you're reaching into a new demographic of people. You're introducing them to your brand in a compelling way. You're awakening that curiosity to get them to your website. Then you're positioning, we can solve this problem better than anybody else. Boom, next step. We got their email address. Now we have this great email campaign. When the time is right, they recognize us as the people that can help solve that problem in that moment of need. So, I mean, it's really hard for you to take a podcast and say, here's how many leads we generated from the podcast. It doesn't work that way, because the podcast is driving traffic to all these other channels, and it's planting the seed and it's awakening curiosity. So that's the number one thing. But you might very well have some true direct leads that come out of it. And we've seen some of that. And one of the greatest things you can do with a podcast, bring your prospective customers on.
That's brilliant.
Further the partnership with them. I mean, they're doing something amazing. You know that they belong with you in your tribe of customers. Honor them and feature their thought leadership and extend that relationship by featuring them on your podcast. And that was John Pompey's wonderful idea. And we've leveraged that when the time is right. We're not like doing that, that's not like the reason we do the podcast, but like there are moments where it's like, wow, this person's doing this amazing. Why would we not feature this person? And we've been able to further that partnership with them and extend that cycle in these great ways by using the podcast.
And it's an abundance mindset mentality. It's like,
totally.
We want to serve our customers. We want to help them. It doesn't matter if we get anything out of it or not, because we know long-term, we're all going to win.
We are putting people, giving them an opportunity to vocalize things that are important. They are synonymous with our mission, our brand core. And if our brand core is unique and compelling, then the ways that we feature that, the voices that we feature, the narrative that's coming out of our ability to serve our communities and serve people through that brand core, that should be interesting. And if it's not, then something's broken here. Maybe that brand core needs to be isolated. Maybe there's a bit of a cultural void that it is there, where there's not that spillover effect that would help your brand, your internal force, to launch a compelling podcast. I mean, this should be a bit of an overflow of love from a great company that's doing great things, ideally.
Yes, ideally. Yeah, it's like you're just moving in the right direction. Well, we are running out of time. There's been an awesome conversation. If our listeners want to know more about you, about your podcast, about Arise, where do you want them to go?
Yeah, I mean, definitely come out to arise.com and follow us there. I'm about to release a new blog out there that I'm really excited for around brand affinity. Would love for you to subscribe on our podcast, Experience Matters Podcast. We host through Simplecast, and you will find that on whatever your podcast medium is. So definitely look that up and subscribe. And would love for folks to also hop over towards CX Accelerator, nonprofit community for folks that are looking to grow in their CX career. Take a look at cxaccelerator.com and join us there as well.
Excellent. So if you're listening, arise.com, Experience Matters Podcast, CX Accelerator, we're going to drop all that information in the show notes,
Perfect.
along with the book titles that were mentioned. Definitely going to put those in there as well. Nate, this has been a treat today. I so appreciate you joining me.
It's been a treat for me, Eric. I always love talking with you. We'll have to do a follow-up episode of this.
Absolutely.
When we're getting into season 4 and we've learned that much more, would love to do this with you again.
I would love that. Yes, you're on my list to invite back.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Make sure to sign up for the 200 at buildthatpodcast.com/the 200 and receive 200 words every Tuesday to move you forward with marketing and podcasting, delivered right to your inbox. Lastly, if you have questions or comments, you can find me on LinkedIn at Eric Rutherford, DM me on Twitter at rfordej, or email me at eric@straightforwardmg.com. Remember, use podcasts to grow your business and expand your influence.